Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this wellness podcast. I am your host, Star Friedenberg, and I am the creator of this podcast, as well as the founder of the Starfreud Wellness Group, which involves running this podcast. It involves running a wellness clinic that's based in central London in Monument, but can also offer sessions online. And what we're working with is offering treatments to everyone that's trying to work on their health and wellness, but from a natural point of view. So we're bridging the gap between conventional Western medicine as well as Eastern, or framed as alternative medicine as well. We also have just launched the Starfreud Wellness Academy. So we're offering teaching into different modalities for people who just want to learn more about the basics in an isolated subject around their health and well-being, as well as practitioners or want to be practitioners who'd like to learn how to become a practitioner themselves in a special, unique field, which can help them on their journey and their path, isn't it? Understanding. So I love it. So today's episode, if I just sort of come back to why we're here today, today's episode is revolved around your microbiome of your oral health. So your mouth health, if you will, tongue twister. And so this is a really, really great episode to tune in on, because this is not something that is popularly known yet, or isn't like got its top fame in the spotlight as of yet, because this is something that's coming up as new research. And again, weighted evidence is being put on it going, okay, actually, we really do need to focus on this because this is really important. A popular question that I often get, because I work in gut health. So people always say your gut microbiome, and what is microbiome fundamentally? And all I say for layman's terms is a microbiome is a universe with lots of living organisms that live within it. And when we are talking about our own individual microbiome as per person, we have a unique set of bacteria or organisms that live within it. So no microbiome is identical, which is profound. But what is happening now is people are getting just sort of coming around to this term of, the gut microbiome. But did you know that you have another universe living somewhere else? And that will be in your mouth. So we call it the oral microbiome. And this is really, really important, because as I find myself repeating in the clinic, is that digestion doesn't start in the gut, it actually starts in your mouth. So this hidden universe that we don't even think about at all actually is really the starting point of digestion, and really is the starting point of affecting our health and well-being. So when I do a lot of detoxification modalities and therapies in the clinic, and we're resetting the body, and I always like to frame it that I'm doing past resetting work, like we're resetting the body or affecting or what has happened from the past, we're resetting it then. But if we at that point of reset or break-even point, and we're looking prospectively, so what is the future of your future health, we got to start thinking about what are we putting into our mouths. And that's not just limited to food and beverages that we're putting in, but we also got to think about how are we maintaining the standards and the quality of our mouth health or our oral microbiome. Most people are not placing, or maybe I should say is what I like to do and create, is most people are not aware of understanding the value of how important it is to look after your mouth. And when I say that, the consequence of your actions, if you will, and yes, as well as your genetics, so you need to do extra things to look after your mouth, then actually can be a consequence or a cause of potential conditions arising. And I'm thinking cardiovascular issues, I'm thinking COVID, I'm thinking Alzheimer's, I'm thinking of gut health diseases as well. And when I say this, I think maybe you go, maybe I should have a little listen about this as well. And what's very interesting is that scientists have identified more than 700 different species of oral bacteria that live in the mouth, and that makes up your oral microbiome. So believe it or not, your unique combination of microbes might even be as identifying as a fingerprint. So that's maybe why in the films they always do a mouth swab, isn't it, when they're trying to find a suspect for maybe a murder or something similar. So as an expert in this and understanding the importance of the microbiome as a whole in all of our different parts of our body, we should not underestimate the importance and significance of how the mouth microbiome plays in our overall health and well-being. The reason why this podcast has come up today, or the subject has come up today for this podcast, is because, as I say, and you would have heard in my previous episodes, is that I attract the theme of the week. And this week has been quite interesting that I've attracted clients that have some sense of mouth imbalance. So couple of people that have been struggling with some severe mouth ulcers, that they're literally all over the mouth, tongue, preventing people from being able to eat. I've had a lady with some genetic gum disease, so at some point that the teeth just fall out because the gums are so weak and frail, and then of course that has a negative knock-on consequences. You get into older age because you can't actually eat anything, and then of course there's no nutrition going into the body, and at some point that's not going to be good and healthy as well, and to a point you can't even have dentures or teeth put in, or false teeth put in, because the gum quality is not strong enough. So this is quite important. So I thought that's really good, because what I do offer in the clinic, and if you're interested, of course, contact me after. That's on the either a free consultation that's provided that we can do online, or contact me on my work email address, because we offer tests in the clinic that will assess your mouth health, if you will, so your oral microbiome as well, so we can see the quality and how the bacteria are doing in there, or if you have some evil bacteria in there that are doing different things. And I really love to use myself as a good example, because I have two, I'm going to call them evil bacteria, that are playing havoc in my mouth. So one, which will be the most quite obvious and standard one, which is about, I have a bacteria that responds very well to sugar in my mouth. And despite if someone with the different microbiome eating sugar, the one in my mouth likes to play havoc and likes to create cavities. So I would be someone more susceptible. So the higher, or the bigger in sugar, the higher the sugar intake I have, then the higher risk that I will be someone with more cavities, and then I'll have to do fillings. And if we know already that, heavy metals exposures and what they put in the fillings is not really good, not really healthy, and not something you want anyway. But there is also research out there where I've seen with holistic dentists, as I'll frame it, is that you can actually grow your teeth back. So traditional Western dentists will say, oh, if you lose your tooth, that's it, that's done, it's cracked, it's over, there's holes in your teeth, you have to fill them with non-natural methods. But actually there are methods out there. If you seek the right dentists, then you can learn that there are methods that you can use at home, herbalism, that you can help your tooth to repair and also regrow. So I'm someone who needs to be extra mindful if I'm consuming sugars and how I respond immediately after with my teeth. So a couple of really great hacks would be to swirl some fresh water, filtered, in your mouth, just to sort of get rid of any excess sugars. Of course, flossing, having some mint breath freshener. So there's this great product I discovered on Amazon, which is a natural mint. So it doesn't have any junk in it in terms of additives, preservatives, natural oils. So it's really good and actually does the job of helping your mouth feel fresh. So again, if you're interested to know that, I will happily send that to you if you contact me, because I don't know the name of it off by heart. So I can send you a little cheat sheet of my recommendations. And so, sort of coming back to that premise of there's a bacteria in my mouth that is very interested to create havoc and create cavities, I have to be extra mindful. So what this test has done has helped me go, okay, cool. Now I know when I do something, I have to do extra little bits and bobs just to maintain my health, because the long-term game is to try and keep your teeth. Another really, really big thing is because of today's society about how teeth are, people are just like, oh, I'll just shave them down. I get dentures, I'll get replacements. there's no worry about teeth anymore. But what's very interesting that I learned from Chinese medicine is that each tooth relates to a different part of your body, a different organ. And so actually when something hurts, it might actually be as a result of a method of your body telling you actually there's some more deeper, serious underlying problem that's going on. And so by removing teeth, or maybe filing down your teeth or getting rid of your teeth and replacing them with artificial teeth actually has some health consequences. But because we're in a generation now where things are happening quite rapidly for aesthetic purposes, we're not there yet with understanding what are the long-term complications and impact. But if there was, which I'd love, research done to say, okay, these people have done X, Y, and Z, of different body parts. Let's see what happens to them in 30, 40, 50 years when we follow their journey and of their health and well-being, and see what actually happens when they become ill, what kind of condition may arise, etc. So again, there is a huge level of importance that people need to consider adding value to their teeth. And so the other one, which was a huge shock for me, is because lemon is like the thing, right? The thing for health and wellness, the thing that you need to have in the morning. You wake up in the morning, you have some lemon water, have any lemon on your juice, a lemon on your food, to break down, the acids that might, counteract if you're eating a fatty meal, or, it's really alkalizing. So, the huge thing back in the day, it's not always popular now about, pH levels. Is your body in an alkaline state or an acidic state? So, lemon is like famous for health. Turns out I have a bacteria in my mouth that hates lemon. So if I have lemon, I destroy the enamel of my teeth. And I was just so like, when I saw that paper, it was kind of almost like reading that you got a school report back and you saw an F on your report and you just stood there for like 5 minutes just trying to like absorb, like, is this real? Is this real? Like, what? I'm someone I love lemon, ironically. This love-hate relationship, isn't it? So I basically was just in that moment thinking like, well, I've got like 10 lemons in the fridge. Like I'm like literally squeezing lemon on anything and everything. I eat, sleep and breathe lemon. And now I've just learned that I've been self-harming. Isn't that the worst, the worst thing on your wellness journey when you're going like, oh, I thought I was helping myself. This is embarrassing now, isn't it? So again, this is why I love that we have these kind of tests and things available, because I like to follow a client-centered approach where let's not guess. Let's not like assume because, there's a huge fad or craze going on social media that you're following and you go, okay, well, like dairy's a problem, gluten's a problem. I'm just going to try and eliminate it from my diet and see what happens. And it's like, no, like, why don't you just do a test and you just don't have to think about it? It's like one of these most powerful health information tools available out there. We have these things, technological advancement. We have this available now. So let's just get you to do this and then you can really nail the hammer on the head. And then you hammer the nail on the head, sorry. And you can go, okay, cool. Now I have a really good focused direction and I don't have to guess. I just know how to look after myself now. Because it's always the unassuming things. That is just how it works in health and wellness. You just think, I could have never guessed that. I would have never thought about that. I wouldn't have known unless I did something like this. So again, this is not something that's very popular in many clinics that is offered. So if you're interested to try that and explore more about your health and well-being, then come here. Right. So we're talking about, I always say to people, we're looking at our digestive system and, the famous saying by Hippocrates, all disease starts in the gut. But as I say, most people don't know that the gut starts at the mouth. And the gut is some crazy long system actually, and in terms of feet we're talking it's 25 foot long approximately, which equates to about plus or minus 8 to 9 meters depending on the person. Of course, if you have a really long tall person, that will be a little bit longer, and versus a little bit shorter person, then a little bit shorter. But it's a really long tube that runs from your mouth to the anus. So your mouth and your microbiome, or your gut microbiome, are connected. And so meaning one imbalance will then cause and affect the other. So cause and effect. So a healthy diet, proper hygiene, and lifestyle habits will benefit both. And this is why, again, I perform this assessment, because we want to make sure everything's okay. And so in my clinic, we'll be performing not only a mouth, which we use spit, but we'll be performing a mouth, blood, and stool test. So we can just sort of nip it in the bud, if you will. And it kind of goes, the value and importance of teeth, because it makes me think about the olden days where there wasn't an emphasis on hygiene and sanitation. People were really sick and ill. And that is actually when people's mouth hygiene was at its worst. And as a result of poor mouth microbiome, this was leading to people's teeth falling out, people unable to eat, and then that would have that negative knock-on consequence to their health and increased the risk of disease, as the mouth is the entry point to the rest of the body. So I think of the mouth as a pawn on the chessboard. If that is in a fragile position, then it leaves the bigger players exposed. So this is what's scary now, because there's a lot of information available out there about actually poor mouth health actually can result in all of these serious diseases that are really, really taking the spotlight. And it's that classic thing, like, how did this happen to me? Like, I follow a healthy lifestyle, I follow this. And most people now are starting to blame genetics. They're like, there must be something in the family, that wasn't picked up before tests were available. It could actually just be your just basic lifestyle things that needed to be improved, but you just didn't know, right? And it makes me also think about how important and value that society is placing on mouth health, especially with insurance and medical insurance. So I know personally with AXA, they cover up to £500 a year on dental care and support. And I think that's really, really great. And it tells me again, why are they, all medical insurance will happily not pay out for anything, right? So it kind of makes me go to myself, well, why are they comfortable with forking that out a year per person? Because what are they thinking? And that's just for dentistry checkups, right? And there's separate funding for pots, if you will, for if you have an accident or an emergency or, tooth is broken or something like that. So they go, they must have thought about this and go, okay, well, actually, as the society as a whole, if we have better teeth hygiene, better mouth health, it's such a tongue twister that I'm going to slip up and say it wrong at some point in this conversation. But actually, it's really, really important. And again, if society is happy and places value on it, then let's start to have a reframe in our mindset about it as well. Recently, I got asked to write an article on the mouth microbiome, so it's quite handy. And again, another trigger to go, okay, this is something that's obviously popular at the moment and people starting to learn more about it, and just sort of touching base on like the more formal or elaborated explanation of what is the microbiome. And this is the answer I responded with, rather than it's just a unique universe. So I said a microbiome, in summary, is life. It is the collection of microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microbes that live in a specific environment, such as the human body. I think of the analogy of comparing it to billions of humans living on Earth, and these microbes, aka the humans, have a function to perform during their lifetime. Referring back to the microbes, their purpose and functions play a crucial role in digestion, immunity, and overall health. The next question I get asked is, how many microbiomes do we have? And so, of course, which you'll have picked up on from earlier, humans have multiple microbiomes. And of course, the most famous one and the most commonly known one at this time with the growth of the gut health revolution, if you will, is the gut microbiome. And this is the largest one, and it lives and resides within the intestines. Then, of course, subject of today is the oral microbiome. So this is in the mouth. We have skin microbiome, which is on the skin, respiratory microbiome, which resides within the lungs and the airway. Then we have the urogenital microbiome, so urinary and reproductive tracts. And then we have the nasal microbiome, so nose and sinuses as well. And just on that matter, when I'm thinking about breathing, I always encourage people to breathe in through their nose, and then you can decide out through the nose or the mouth. But the importance of this is that we have hairs in our nose, and that acts as a filter. So when we inhale through our nose, we're filtering through the pollution, exposures, bacteria, viruses, etc., wherever you are that you might be exposed or contaminated to. Then there's at least a filter that's going on to reduce the risk of inhaling something that could have some negative consequence, whether that gets you sick, etc. And so if you're inhaling through the mouth, there is a lack of filter, and of course a knock-on consequence to your oral microbiome as well. So whenever you're thinking about breathing, and it may be a practice as well, you might think, Starsit, breathe through my nose. And you might go, wow, my nose is very blocked, or something's happening. And then that might give you a new awareness of maybe I should think about doing something else about that. Why is my nose blocked? Why are my sinuses blocked? Do I have too much mucus causing food? Or is my immune system compromised? And I need to start looking at that. So that might be some good tips. And so another thing that I think of at night, which is really, really good, if you wake up with a dry mouth, as an example, you might be an open mouth sleeper. So really, really good resources that are out there available are mouth strips, mouth tape that can help close your mouth off at night, that forces you to breathe through your nose. And then you have these wonderful things that I use, where there are these stickers that help to open up your nasal breathing. So for example, I've had my nose broken twice, one through sport and one because the NHS lost my referral. So it's all about my nasal passage is blocked, just quite literally physiologically. So I just need to use this nasal device to help open up the flaps of my nose, and then that can help me breathe in much better through the night, so then I can get some good airways, because oxygenation through the body good for everything in the body, because it's part of a vital process. So just so you know. And when we talk about these microbiomes, almost like different departments of a business, if you will, all separate in its own right, but fundamentally they all interact with each other, and they play a role in the health and wellness and help prevention of disease as well. So in terms of this subject, we get asked, is the mouth microbiome different from the gut microbiome? And the answer, of course, is yes. The mouth microbiome is different from the gut, because while we share some microbes between the two systems, or the two microbiomes, they are distinct due to the difference in the environment. So we're talking about pH levels, we're talking about oxygen levels and function. And maybe one very classically obvious thing is that your mouth is open multiple times a day. So it's really getting like a full up front, maybe like I say, the pawn of the chessboard exposure to the external world. Whereas in the gut, it's a very sheltered. So I would like to use the mouth as an open exposure, whereas the gut is in a closed exposure environment. So it will obviously have different things going on. And whereas the mouth is the starting point of where everything begins, and where the gut microbiome is sort of towards the end process where the things are ending. And the gut microbiome is primarily anaerobic, so it has low oxygen, whereas the mouth has both aerobic and anaerobic bacteria, where it's oxygen loving, right? So the mouth microbiome consists of a diverse community of microbes, which is living in the mouth. So that will include not just the mouth itself, but it will include the tongue, the teeth, the gums, and saliva. It helps in digestion, protects against harmful bacteria, and influences overall health, including the gut and the immune system. Research is also showing how it plays an important impact on inflammation and brain function as well. And another thing that I want to bring up, just because it's popping up in my mind, is talking about your saliva. Your saliva maintains consists of digestive enzymes, so enzymes in your saliva that actually help to break down food. So if your mouth lacks saliva, you find your mouth very dry, it's going to be really hard for you to chew your food and swallow and expect to get nutrition out of it, or effective optimal nutrition out of it. So we need to have optimal saliva in our mouth. One trick that I always recommend to people is to, when you're eating, try eat one food group at a time. So I just think of the classic, you're cutting your protein, you have a piece of salad on top, you have a piece of potato as well, and you're mixing multiple food groups together, which you need multiple different enzymes together. So if you want to create the best digestive outcome for yourself, it would be about eating one food group at a time, because in your mouth will go, okay, there's protein in my mouth, okay, I'm going to create the protein enzyme to digest the food. Oh, now she switched to carbs, so I'm going to create the carb enzyme to help digest the food, etc., right? So just being mindful of that, because that can be very, very helpful and a very good tip as well. And always start with your protein first, maybe fiber first, but then protein fundamentally, because that can help satiate you and make you feel fuller. So by the time you get to your carbs, you won't necessarily need as much. But of course, if I'm thinking in that same breath, that protein, can have fibers, it can be with the sinew of the skin, etc. You don't necessarily, or people do, I do anyway, I get some stuck in my teeth, and if you don't effectively floss and get rid of that out of your teeth, that can rot. So even immediately after a meal, I carry little flosser tools with me, toothpicks and flossers. I forgot what it's called now, the one that's kind of shaped like a harp, if you will, with a long stick attached. So that can just carry around, pick, and you just immediately reduce the risk of that getting trapped and rotting essentially in your mouth. And then that can create a negative outcome in your microbiome, your mouth oral microbiome, right? And in addition to being the initiation point of digestion, it's crucial for maintaining oral as well as systemic health. So, and let's go with an example here. It has become actually a really well-studied microbiome to date. So, which is really, really good. I'm really happy because, research needs to be done now. So, even though the microbiome of the mouth is complex, it's a complex ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, other microorganisms that are vital in maintaining oral and overall health. This community is essential, as I said, for digestion, immune defense, and even cardiovascular health. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later when I talk about the risks of different diseases. So an imbalance in the mouth can lead to various oral diseases and may contribute to systemic health problems. So who knew not brushing your teeth could actually be really detrimental to your health? And one of the primary things, as I say, is it's protecting against harmful bacteria. So you don't want any pathogenic organisms, preventing them from overgrowing and causing infections, which one would be like cavities, gum disease, oral thrush as well. And that's another thing where I think about this huge increase in balance in people that have candida these days, because most people don't know is that we have candida in our body. But of course, when anything is at an imbalance, then it becomes too much and then it starts to create havoc on the body. But we have naturally occurring candida in our mouth, in our gut, and as women as well, in our vaginas. So that's where you can get those outcomes such as thrush. So a well-balanced microbiome supports strong teeth, healthy gums by regulating the acidity and producing antimicrobial compounds. But beyond that, studies suggest that an imbalanced oral microbiome might increase the risk of conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, even Alzheimer's. So harmful bacteria from the mouth can enter into the bloodstream, triggering inflammation throughout the body, and that does lead to contributing it to chronic illness. So again, maintaining a healthy mouth microbiome involves good oral hygiene practices such as regular brushing and flossing. So, the ideal would be after every meal if you can, but the practicalities is first thing in the morning and straight before bed. Ideal is a balanced diet with that is low in sugar, as well as staying hydrated itself to keep the mouth to keep the mouth moist, right? And even we look at probiotic foods, of course, that can really help support. And you always hear me say this, subject to a blood test to know your allergies and intolerances. But probiotic foods like yogurt and fermented vegetables, think of kefir, kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, these things can also help support beneficial bacteria. But of course, the blood test that we do in the clinic is really lovely because we're working on foods, dividing it into 4 categories. We're talking about your allergies, we're talking about your food sensitivities / intolerances, we're talking about foods that are good to eat, or should I say are okay to eat. And then we also have a category for your superfoods, so things you really, really should incorporate into your diet to really increase. So a couple of random ones for me is Brussels sprouts and asparagus. So, whether you knew that or not, I wouldn't have thought to eat those because, Brussels sprouts for me, it's like, oh, that's a typical Christmas kind of food. But now actively, and even if we talk about asparagus, asparagus gives you really foul urine. So it's like, oh, we don't want to eat that too often. But actually now I'm making that a weekly practice. So avoiding excessive antibiotic use as well will support that because antibiotics kill everything. So we want to be careful. We also want to be mindful of alcohol because that can also just literally wipe out the whole microbiome. So we want to be mindful of that. And also being extra conscientious around mouthwash. So I am not a fan of mouthwash. So if you are going to buy, I'm going to say generic off-the-shelf mouthwash, you need to try and buy alcohol-free. But unfortunately, there's evidence showing now that the mouthwash is actually high in sugar, and as a result, it's creating the outcome of people getting diabetes from mouthwash. I mean, can you believe that? So what I do actually is, because I work with aromatherapy oils, essential oils, is that I make my own mouthwash, if you will. That's alcohol-free, that's sugar-free, etc. And it's very nourishing, healing and cleansing and antimicrobial. So if you want to know that recipe, let me know and I'll send you that as well. Another thing I'm a huge fan of is apple cider vinegar, diluted in water. You can also do coconut oil pulling. So in the morning you can take a teaspoon, depending how big your mouth is really, but a teaspoon or up to a tablespoon's worth of coconut oil. You scoop it, put it in your mouth and you pull. They can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, really just, the longer is technically better, and try not to swallow any of it because it's an antimicrobial, very natural, and then that can help to support your teeth and mouth health as well. And as I said, it is as unique, your microbiome is as unique as your fingerprint. And that's why I say I recommend the test, because you don't know what your mouth will be doing to someone else's microbiome's doing versus yours, because of so many factors of just how you're born and just how you're living your life. So you need to be mindful of that. So I'm a huge, what can I say? I don't follow the wave of what, fads are popping up and things that are popping up, because again, it's for the masses and doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. So it's rather important to find out what is good for you, customized, so then you can have a focused approach and a correct approach as well, because so many things, and I live by this. I have lived by these mistakes that I've made. I've been doing so many things before information was, available, or tests were available, where I was following things, and actually it was to my detriment. And so I don't want people to fall through those same mistakes that I have been doing, which I have done for a greater part of my life, and probably still things that I'm doing now that I think are good, but I'll probably discover in some future studies that actually no, wasn't the right thing to be doing. So couple of tips to prevent cavities, gum disease, even systematic conditions like heart disease and diabetes. So thumbs up, so brush and floss daily. And like I said, I just go with what's realistic. So brush twice a day and floss once to remove harmful bacteria. So one thing that people may or may not know, don't use water after you brush your teeth. Just spit it out and try leave whatever it is, the toothpaste that you're using. And I'm going to really harp on about toothpaste. Toothpaste is toxic unless you get the good stuff. So I watched a documentary, I don't remember how many years ago. I watched a study and exposed myself to so many things I can't quote from where resources are from. But basically they were talking about fluoride and like its level of toxicity and bad things that fluorides can do. And in this documentary, it was saying that, you know, factories were producing so much byproduct of fluoride, and so they didn't know how to get rid of it at no expense, and basically it was too expensive to get rid of it. And so someone came up with this genius idea to say, let's get rid of the fluoride little bit by little bit in toothpaste. And that has sort of been imprinted in my mind, going, okay, well, if that's not supposed to be in our mouth, you know. And then what's interesting is in Western medicine, dentists are indoctrinated with fluoride is good for your teeth. You must have fluoride toothpaste. And they will swear by it like they're swearing on the Bible. But if you come to the alternative community, we're like, fluoride is bad. And they put a lot of other nonsense in it as well. So you need to be mindful of your toothpaste. So anything you get on the shelves is a no-go. And also, good toothpaste is not as cheap. So, I don't know, generic toothpaste you'll get for about £1 or something. Lasts you a long time. So toothpaste is peanuts, right? It's worth nothing. Good toothpaste could be something between £6, and you go, wow, that's a lot, because you're comparing apples to pears. But if you're talking about the quality and longevity of your mouth health, £6 is not a lot. What I personally do is I use 2 different types of toothpaste. So in the morning, I will use a antimicrobial coconut black charcoal toothpaste. And you need to be mindful not to overuse that too, because I've gone through a period in my time where I was just brushing with charcoal and using charcoal mouthwash, and I actually turned my teeth black for a period of time. So you need to be real careful. And so I use that in the morning, because throughout the night, once our body goes through the detox processes and it's clearing and it's using up all our water in our body to really detox the body, all of the bad aspects will be coming out through our breath. So another really big tip that I tell everyone to do is never drink water first thing when you wake up. Again, going against the fad, because I don't want you re-swallowing all of that junk that your body's trying to expel. Because there's 4 detoxification pathways. It's breathing, peeing, pooing, and sweating. So we're expelling toxicity through our breath. So you want to make sure that whatever's come up from, let's call it the overnight night shift of the factory working in your body, you want to make sure you brush your teeth, clean your mouth first before you take your first sip of water. Because I just have this vision of like, okay, you're drinking half a liter, you're being so good, you know me, with lemon water, and then actually what you're doing is just swallowing back all of those toxins. It's kind of this thing for me, once I know, I cannot unknow, and just to do it, it's like, it's torture. So, you know, hopefully I've created that awareness for you as well, but you just want to make sure that you clean your teeth. So I brush in the morning, I scrape my tongue in the morning as well to get all of that icky off. And then when you brush your teeth, you don't rinse your mouth with chlorinated water, right? You just leave it as is, so you can let that toothpaste do its thing and, bring the healing. So if you want to drink water immediately after, I'd say wait for at least 10 minutes or so before you do engage in putting anything into your mouth. Another big thing, at night, I have special probiotic toothpaste. Again, not a very popularly known thing, but you can get probiotic toothpaste. If you're in America, you can get customized probiotic toothpaste. So this is amazing. And I work with this lab that helps create that for you. So again, if you want to learn more, please contact me and I'll send you the right information. And what I love is that we can work globally with people. So we can send the test via America here as well. So if whoever you are listening this from, then you can obviously help that. So I try to get people to do one of two things, is to have a water flosser as well as natural floss. And depending on your level of sensitivity of your teeth, not everyone can do a water flosser, but that really gets blockages out. And there's some footage of people actually removing some plaque buildup in their teeth that almost was taking the shape of their whole tooth, and that was like boof, this whole thing fell off, and you're like, wow, this thing is serious. So much so you have to be careful as well, because I did something very traumatic the other day where I by mistake pushed it on and I wasn't wearing my glasses, and it actually shot into my eye, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've probably just blinded myself, like I'm gonna lose an eye now. And for up to nearly 2 weeks my eye was hurting, and there was just nothing I could do about it. It was just basically a bruised eye. So maybe have some eye shields and just be careful how you use it. But water flosser has been, in my knowledge since I was a child, because my dad would do it religiously every single day. So it's not this weird thing to me. Might be to you for now as you get these new habits in, but really, really powerful thing. And then just your classic flossing. Again, dental floss, traditional dental floss, not healthy. So getting organic one with good essential peppermint oil can be really good. And again, you can get that off Amazon. But again, I have all of these hyperlinks. If you contact me, I'll send you this cheat sheet so you can get that and floss. So that's really helpful. Tongue scraper, I don't like the generic plastic ones. I like the copper one preferentially, or the stainless steel, because there's something naturally occurring in that, can help fight off bacteria, whereas plastic, BPA exposures, doesn't clean well, you're just increasing your risk as well. And this can, of course, using a tongue scraper is fundamentally the bacteria that sits on your tongue is what's really causing you to have bad breath, so we can help eliminate as well. Want to look at increasing your water intake, plenty of water, minimum, I always say per 30 kilograms or times 2.2 would be 66 pounds. You want to drink 1 litre of water. So on average, I encourage people to drink anything between 2 to 3 litres of water a day with electrolytes, which will keep your mouth hydrated and helps to flush out bacteria as well. Eating increased probiotic foods, fermented foods. I also think about miso as well. If you can consume that. Soy, because soy can be not good. Chewing sugar-free gum, I have mixed reviews about, but I will say it anyway because it does get asked. It does stimulate your saliva, so if people are under salivated, if you will, that will be quite helpful. It helps to maintain a healthy pH level, and there's a lot of good gums out there, generally speaking. But overall, as a personal preference, I say to people to not chew gum, because I know that, and so I will recommend it to the rare people where their mouth is absolutely dry and they just can't do anything. They just feel absolutely parched, which is a very popular consequence of the thirst and parched feeling will be people with diabetes. But it's the idea that if you start to chew, it stimulates the saliva, which is stimulating the digestive processes, and people then basically switch on like the keys of a car. They're switching on the digestive system, and the body's like, okay, cool, something's in the mouth, I need to swallow, and we got to get this going. And that's going to start to increase the stomach acids, etc. And by due or fact that nothing actually goes down, you've kind of prematurely turned the system on, and then that can have a few negative knock-on consequences to the digestive system. So I don't recommend it, only to the rare few that do need it because of different health reasons. And I actually saw a post day before on Instagram about if you have unhealthy chewing gum, because people do it for different reasons, whether it's to be cool, to chew, trying to avoid eating something because they're trying to watch their health. maybe to have better breath because they're going somewhere, but then actually we're exposing ourselves to, this post said, more than 3,000 microplastics as well. So it's just another way that you're exposing yourself, and to the additives and junk within it. So if you're going to do it properly and get some really, really, really good gums. Or you can have these lovely peppermint natural essential oil mints that I've discovered that can do just a great job. And you feel like, oh, my mouth is fresh. So I absolutely highly recommend that. So yeah, just to be careful. Yes. And sort of going back to this probiotic toothpaste, I feel like I jumped there, but the probiotic toothpaste is really, really amazing because it has natural, bacteria, probiotics in to help strengthen the mouth health, the microbiome, and also can help restore the enamel of the teeth. So the main ingredient in this one can help, has 96% of the ingredient that is needed restoring enamel. So if you use it for a prolonged period of more than 3 months, then you will start to notice improved strength and benefits, which I've used it for some time now. I think it's really, really good. But in the case of, some people might choose to use that and maybe for a short period of time to do it morning and evening. But I like to mix it up as well. So if you also want to know different toothpaste, I have lots of different other recommendations as well that are natural. A really great brand that you'll get in a lot of the alternative shops or wellness shops or health shops will be Kingfisher. But again, don't be thrown off by the price, because just think about how long toothpaste actually does last, right? And then I make and sell natural concoctions of, like I say, I call it a mouthwash, but just natural oils that are put together, infused, that you can rinse your mouth out with. So I can recommend you the recipe so you can make this at home, so you can share with everyone in the whole family, but just knowing in your heart that it's going to be really, really good, so you don't expose yourself to potential diabetes or sugar imbalances or alcohol destroying your microbiome, just in the sake of being societally conscious of having bad breath. So 100% for that. So yeah, I call this, and aside from that, if you want to use a different natural mouth rinse, so there's salt water, coconut oil pulling, and the concoction, or the herbalist concoction that I make as well. So like I say, avoid mouthwash with alcohol, sugary and acidic foods. Also, another important one is the trying to see, this is subject to the individual, so please don't take this as, fixed advice, because some people need to eat more regularly and some people need to eat more intermittently. But the idea is, if you have frequent snacking, you're constantly switching your digestive system on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And it doesn't actually give a chance for your mouth bacteria to sort of settle and repair and do different functions, but instead it gives rise to harmful bacteria for more of it to grow. Because if it's constantly, and if we just use silly examples, you're eating something processed, then you're eating a sugary snack, and then you're having a coffee and you're having this and that, you need to just be mindful of that as well. And actually, speaking about that, a really good example I learned from my mum, because she adored coffee, like a bit crazy. I think there was something, not all real coffee, some was chicory, but she would drink, I think, between 10 to 14 cups a day. And of course, with age, her teeth started to become a bit yellow and affected. And she taught me this really nifty trick about drinking through a metal straw, any straw, but metal will be the best, because that can be at least hygienic. And then you're not exposing yourself to microplastics as well. So if you drink through a straw, to any staining beverage, and that will even, I would expand into juices. I think of beetroot juice, carrot juice, green juices, etc., or even charcoal or something like that you might be consuming. You want to just try and avoid your teeth, because with prolonged exposure, you can, of course, be at risk of making your teeth stained. And I will use a very, very good example of myself, is that I went to Japan a couple of years ago, and Japan and food is just unreal and lovely and delicious, and you just can't help yourself. And so it can be pretty wild now when you start to research about this, and you may, because maybe if you're struggling with a certain health condition imbalance, you might find that maybe this is an avenue you should start looking at investing in, because you can potentially start to see connections that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And sort of coming from saying earlier that I'll talk about different conditions, a couple of examples are high blood pressure, wouldn't expect that. Heart disease, wouldn't expect that. Even infertility, and the list goes on. As I mentioned, Alzheimer's, but it's also RA, rheumatoid arthritis, even erectile dysfunction. And there's even some emerging research looking at how the oral microbiome works in relation with cancer. So we really need to unpack this, because it's kind of crazy, no? Like, I think so. Like, how can these tiny organisms in our mouths have such a big impact on our overall health, right? Like, what? No. And this, yeah, it's profound. So again, we really, really want to look at how to improve this microbiome. And it's even affecting things like getting pregnant. So, there's lots of classical stories with people, and they go like, oh, well, I'm off the pill, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I can't get pregnant. The husband or partner, again, sperm count, everything looks okay. And it's like, why is this just not happening? Why is this not taking place? And there's even been a real strong link between oral disease as well as male infertility as well. So I remember that over 90% of men who were having trouble conceiving actually had some form of oral disease. So I don't know if that's you listening out there, just maybe have a little investigation into that. And the incredible thing is that when men receive treatment for their oral health issues, their chances of conceiving improve dramatically, not even just a little, dramatically. And a 70% improvement in pregnancy rates as well. So that's pretty huge, especially in today's era. Like, people used to pop up babies left, right, and center before. Now it's like people paying so much money just to try and get pregnant. I mean, I was just talking to a friend about it a few days ago, and saying that her sister, has to pay £20,000 a pop of doing IVF. And the first didn't take, and also mentioned that it was quite abnormal because her sister actually had more eggs than the usual, and out of all of them that didn't work. So it's kind of like something's going on here, right? So it's not just limited to men and women, it's a combination. So even if we're focusing back now onto women, women with gum disease can take on average between 2 months longer to conceive. So again, like, am I making this, like, am I raising, I call it the bunny ears? Like, are you going, huh? Like, wait, what is she saying here? And again, it's also inferring, which I started in the beginning. It's working on how interconnected all the different systems are within the body. Just because Western science hasn't been able to really fill out, we understand the body from A to Z. That's why I'm obsessed with studying, because every time I'm like, what? Like, this has just opened up a whole nother bag of worms. Like, I need to go down this rabbit hole now, because just there's so much to understand in this interrelatedness. And speaking about that, let's talk about another surprising link, the erectile dysfunction. If you meet me, I deal with everything, so I'm a bit desensitized, but it might, especially for men, be quite, or classed as quite a sensitive subject, not very openly spoken about, but it is important to talk about it. So maybe if I can be that person that is like, comfortable to just say it like it is, maybe it can help people just to, find the right path and direction to help themselves. And the statistics around erectile dysfunction are actually quite striking. So men are about 2.85 times more likely to experience erectile dysfunction with periodontal disease. And first of all, it's important to understand that, what is that actually? And it's a spectrum of conditions that affect your gums and the supporting structures of your teeth. So like gingivitis, gingivitis is the early stage of periodontal disease where the gums become inflamed, red and swollen. So we all have that, oh, my gums feel sore, they feel not okay. But we don't actually think, okay, how serious is this? But then it starts to progress into something more serious. So if it's left untreated, then it could progress into periodontitis, which is where the real damage starts to begin, and it happens. So this is where the inflammation and infection spread deeper below the gum line, affecting the bone, the tissues that support your teeth, and then that can eventually lead to tooth loss. So, wider systemic effects like increasing erectile dysfunction. Again, my brain is like, what? How can losing a tooth equal erectile dysfunction? It's just so mind-blowing, But fundamentally, it stems back from impaired blood vessel dilation. So basically, your blood vessels need to be able to expand and contract to allow proper blood flow. So the inflammation and the specific bacteria associated in this disease can actually interfere with the ability throughout the entire body. And so that can lead to the erectile dysfunction. So it's like causing traffic jams in those vital highways. So it's not very good. So your mouth, inflammation in your mouth can actually affect how the blood flows in other parts of your body. So that's just crazy, right? So blows my mind. And so that, of course, we're thinking blood flow, we're thinking cardiovascular system, we're thinking of cardiovascular disease. And so, we're always being told by the doctors, take care of our hearts. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. So, how does the microbiome of your mouth actually fit into this? And there's a statistic out there that says, for example, that gum disease increases your risk of developing high blood pressure by 20%. I mean, that's significant, don't you think? So it's not just blood pressure. And some researchers estimate that 30 to 40% of cardiac issues seen in hospitals could be actually linked to oral bacteria. So, I mean, I didn't have any idea at all, of course I studied it, that there was a connection and how strong that connection was. And studies have also shown that people with gum disease are twice as likely to have a heart attack and 3 times more likely to have a stroke. Now that's really scary. And the mechanisms behind this involve inflammation, as I've just discussed above, right? So, chronic gum inflammation is actually sending signals throughout your body. And so I always like to say to people, I help people to be more in their bodies because external stresses of our world is making us numbed and desensitized. And I'm just trying to say, what is your body telling you? Create a relationship with your body. Your body is your best friend. And what is your body telling you? And one thing is a symptom. But remember, if there's a symptom, there's a root cause as well. And we got to be very aware of what's happening here, right? So any stress that puts your body into red alert or a state of emergency, then, that is fundamentally going to put stress on your cardiovascular system. And it can lead to elevated levels of inflammatory markers like the C-reactive protein, so CRP, which is a blood test I offer in the clinic as well. And even one study I read said that treating gum disease can actually lower your CRP levels, which is just crazy. I love it. This is such a mind-blowing section. So I was like, I'm so passionate to speak to you about this today. Yes, so then of course, the bacteria then can travel from your mouth to your heart. So we're talking about infective endocarditis as well. So that can lead or potentially infect damaged heart valves, especially if, people are post-surgery. So there's just another risk. So another thing I think about, in the hospitals, you're just in bed all day, are you, maybe you get a wash if you're lucky, or if you allow it as well, right? Some people are like, no, thank you. But, what about your teeth health, if you're not able to walk or anything like that? So just start to frame in your mind that taking care of your mouth is actually protecting your whole body. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the brain, because this is where the connection really, really gets fascinating. And I would say the biggest thing at the moment now is shift on the spotlight is diabetes, it's cancer, as I always talk about in my podcast. But, another big, maybe taking the third spot, was all about Alzheimer's disease, which there's still a lot of research being done, but this is an intriguing area around the oral microbiome and how the relationship between that and Alzheimer's as well. So it's pretty shocking to me to have learned that having gum disease for more than 10 years or so, which people might have low-lying, ignoring, just saying, oh, it's okay, or I can't afford dentistry, etc., can actually increase your risk of developing Alzheimer's by 70%. That's 70%. What? Right, it sounds so unprofessional now, but again, it's just like, what? Yeah, so that statistic actually comes from a really large study that they followed over 20,000 people for 2 decades. So it's not just correlation either, right? It's a direct mechanism at play. So we just got to be so on top of it. And so there's a specific type of oral bacteria called Porphyromonas gingivalis, so Latin, so they can actually travel from your mouth to the brain. So it crosses the blood-brain barrier, which is supposed to protect the brain from harmful substances. So this tiny bacterium is basically sneaking into the brain, and once it's there, it releases these toxic enzymes called gingipanes, and they break down the brain tissue. So it's actually contributing to damage, and that's what we see on Alzheimer's. And what's interesting is that they're saying Alzheimer's as well, this is not mouth microbiome, but they're saying that, you could be interchangeably calling it diabetes 3, which is saying that just increased sugar intake is resulting in people having Alzheimer's because of the damage of the excess sugar consumption. And now it's like, okay, well, Star's thinking, I'm thinking, or, excess sugar, how's that affecting the oral microbiome? Bacteria, harmful bacteria is stronger, then it starts to go up into the brain. And actually, this is all like spiderweb connected world, isn't it? So that is the current thinking, that this is a contributing factor to the damage that we see in Alzheimer's. And even more striking, there's more. Studies have found that these gingipanes in the brains are 97% of people with Alzheimer's. So there's a strong link. So it's kind of like saying, okay, we think this, we have a hypothesis in this, and it's like, okay, well, this kind of makes sense. Like it's saying this, what is on the tin is on the tin, right? So again, we're suggesting that the oral microbiome plays a significant role in the development and progression of this devastating disease. So now you think to yourself, gotta get new toothbrush. Oh, that's another thing I really harp on about. So every month I change my toothbrush head. So even I have an electric toothbrush. The heads are expensive and they say you can replace them every 3-4 months. I don't know anyone who's ever gone actively and said, maybe except for germaphobes, but anyone that's actively gone and said, okay, I'm changing my toothbrush head every month. I do it religiously, maybe because I'm conscious of it, aware of it. Of course, I make my partner do it as well. But like a toothbrush sits in the toilet. You're doing shower, humidity, steam, bacterial exposures, pooping, peeing. People don't consciously think to close the toilet lid. I'm very big on that. Because when you flush, you just spray painting bacteria everywhere from your stool, from your urine, etc. And so that goes onto your toothbrush. And people I know don't change their toothbrush like years. And I'm just like, that's really scary. They only change it when they think, oh, it just feels a bit worn out. But I'm like, that's a long time. That's a real long time. I change my toothbrush every month, or the head every month, just to ensure that bacterial potential exposures are significantly reduced, increasing the potential outcome of my oral health, my hygiene. And that's the same. So whether that's you that you need to replace your heads, and it's the same about using a special electronic toothbrush. I have an expensive one. It was recommended by the hygienist. I don't like these, manual toothbrush because it's just the vibration, everything, the depth that it can clean, how it can clean. It just seems to do a much more effective job. And when we're doing something, we might as well do it properly and invest in our health and well-being. And maybe after telling you about all these different conditions and potential diseases as a result of bad mouth health, you might go, actually, maybe it's a good idea. And again, if you want to know cheat sheet, I'll send you this. the toothbrush that I use. Okay, so yeah, I would like to say the research is pretty compelling, and there's still more studies that are being done showing the complex relationship as well. So now, what about rheumatoid arthritis, right? So that's interesting because it seems to be a two-way street. People with RA, I call it rheumatoid arthritis RA, are 8 times more likely to develop gum disease. And I must say, because I treat people with RA, that I have recognized within them imbalanced mouth health, right? And already from the get-go, because I know digestive system starts in the mouth, I tell people to treat themselves in terms of improving their hygiene. I just naturally have always done that from the get-go because I understood that, maybe not by research till now. So I've noticed an improvement in their symptoms as well as other things. But again, 8 times, that's a lot, right? And again, it's coming to that shared inflammatory pathway that's involved in this process. So we want to, and maybe if you have RA, maybe you can start to think, how is my mouth doing actually? And again, start to treat yourself from this point of view. So if you improve that, symptoms of your RA will improve, right? I even read somewhere that there was a patient who struggled with severe RA and actually was able to walk again after receiving treatment of her gum disease. So isn't that amazing, right? So, there are miracle cases as well. So of course that is possible. So just seeing again what unexpected systematic benefits you can get as a result. So I've talked about infertility, erectile dysfunction, cardiovascular, Alzheimer's, rheumatoid arthritis. So it feels like we're hitting all the major concerns here, but I haven't even touched on the big C word. And so there is a newer, and just by that I mean cancer, right? So there's a newer area of research that is now starting to get attention. So there's a certain oral bacteria, and in particular one called Fusobacterium nucleatum, that has been linked to both breast and colorectal cancer. And well, it's not that simple, but studies suggest that it might contribute to making those cancers more aggressive and harder to treat. So some evidence from animal studies that this bacterium can actually promote tumor growth. So it's not directly causing cancer, but it may be aggravating it or / making it work. So that's the current thinking that's out there. And interestingly, green tea has been shown to be effective at killing this particular bacteria. So even in my test that I promote or have spoken about, that I was told that, a superfood for me would be green tea. So it's good to know. And so it makes me think, in Asia, that's just a standard thing to drink, isn't it? And, statistically speaking, comparing to the West, the health issues there are a lot less. So quite interesting. And maybe it's many, many reasons, but maybe green tea, it could be a contributing factor as a basis of their lifestyle. And just to reiterate, when I go, one step back, it's still in early research. So of course things can be shifted, changed, disproven, or different things can be proven. So, more studies are needed to fully understand the role that the oral microbiome does play with cancer or in cancer. And another one that I think is important as well to touch on is COVID-19 pandemic. And research has actually shed some light on how our oral health might influence the severity of COVID-19, because there are a lot of people, and some people that I treat, that are struggling with long-term COVID. And as well, there, as I believe, because, it's affecting people, as I see, there's this constant mutation of COVID that is affecting people and just wiping out their energy and things like that. And, it makes me question, put the question out there, how do you think your oral health is, or if you have any poor issues with your teeth, or maybe gum disease. But yeah, their research has also suggested that it has about a 9-fold increased risk of complications from COVID if you have this, poor mouth health or gum disease. So again, super huge. You're like, what is this, right? So how they sort of seeing that there's a link, there is a couple of proposed mechanisms. So again, coming back to this thing about chronic inflammation associated with gum disease, which could exacerbate the body's overreaction to the virus. So basically it's just adding fuel to the fire of the cytokine storm. And secondly, the oral bacteria could potentially travel down to the lungs as well, so causing a secondary bacterial infection. So, which, as we know, were a major cause of the disease in severe COVID cases. So maybe I stopped there, I don't know. So again, it's just reiterating throughout all the various conditions is that one thing has like a domino knock-on effect to the other. So again, just we just got to be mindful, especially when we're in times that our immune system is heightened or immune stress is heightened as well. If I talk about stress, and stress, is just this evil enemy that is affecting everything about our health. But what's interesting as well is that stress can also affect your oral microbiome, because it can lead to a dry mouth. It can create inflammation throughout the body, which can affect your gums. And with the dry mouth, that can also affect the saliva. And saliva is important for protecting your teeth, neutralizing acids, as well as supporting the digestive processes of when you consume food. And when you're stressed, your stress hormones actually can inhibit your saliva production. So it's just being mindful of that. And I heard of a case, not personally, but a client of somebody's experienced a significant collagen breakdown in her gums after a period of intense stress. So again, I don't know the ins and outs of the medical case history, but that's really powerful. And so, again, that's crazy that stress can also create problems in your body to this point. Another commonly asked question, does your oral microbiome change if you kiss somebody else? And especially if you kiss many other bodies. And the sort of the feedback and answer is that it actually takes a lot of kissing to significantly alter, or let's say a huge saliva exchange in order to create, some form of impact. So even more said that, more than 11 times a day with the same person would be considered, you have to be kissing per day in order to create some form of change in the oral bacterium or the oral microbiome of your mouth, right? But what else can be interesting is that oral sex can definitely transfer bacteria, of course, because it's from two different, let's call it universes. So that can create an effect. Breathing, I've touched on about. So using your nose, which has been designed to filter warm and the humidity of the air you breathe. So when you breathe through your mouth, you're bypassing that filtration system. So just sort of getting back onto breathing through your nose. So just repeating that. So you just go, oh yeah. And of course, if you're breathing out through your mouth the whole time, that's actually going to lead you to have a dry mouth, which again is negative and bad for your mouth, your microbiome. So just, if you find yourself, it's an awareness practice, you'll find yourself breathing through your nose or not breathing, or breathing through your mouth. So just being mindful of that. And again, using a mouth tape if you need, especially while you sleep, to sort of help create that practice for you. Of course, when I move on now to talking about diet, if you eat a lot more whole unprocessed foods, your teeth and gums by default will be healthier versus the processed, ultra-processed and high sugary foods, as well as sugary drinks. Of course, that will create a problem in your mouth, and especially if you don't brush your teeth after as well. But of course, if you're eating foods that are quite tough and chewy, and I always think of a carrot, that helps to develop strong jaws, helps to properly align the teeth. And of course, just gets the system, as we call the chewing word, medically speaking, it's called masticating. And so the masticating process is really good and healthy. And I recall that from when Holocaust victims, when they were survivors from the camp, they were taken into hospital. People were basically not used to eating for an extended period of time and actually did pass away as a result of eating. Their system was not used to chewing, swallowing, digesting, and so it was actually traumatic to the body to a point that they passed away. So actually the process would be, if you are not chewing, tougher foods, chewier foods, and, a variety of foods that are challenging mastication differently in your mouth, then as a consequence, that can have an impact on your teeth and your gums as well, and ultimately your microbiome. So you need to just be mindful to eat variety of textures of food, and as I always say, variety is the spice of life. So thinking again, if this is allowed for your system and constitution, raw vegetables, some nuts, some seeds, things like that. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, limiting your processed foods, sugary drinks, and then caffeine. Caffeine, again, it's a really good expression used, is that caffeine is not bad. Caffeine is a tool, and you want to use your tools and resources wisely and not overuse them, because anything imbalanced will be bad for you, right? Whether that's too little or that's too much. So just being mindful that, caffeine, excess amount, it acts as a diuretic. So then you'll be losing a lot of fluids. So that can be drying to the body. So maybe thinking about one less coffee, one less sugar. And that's the same case for tea as well. So just being mindful of that. When I move on to, and I mentioned about the straw as well earlier, and when I move on to the concept around smoking and vaping, they are both extremely detrimental to oral health, because they can dry your mouth, they impair blood flow to the gums, and they increase the risk of gum disease. I mean, many other things as well, but in context of this subject matter, they can also mask the signs of gum disease, like bleeding. So you might not even realize you have a problem until it's too late, which is quite scary. So we've covered diet, talked about oral hygiene practices, which I spoke in the beginning. The foundation of good oral hygiene, which is brushing and flossing. So let's sort of start to wind down in terms of the, processes, just making sure, just to highlight some extra points. You need to brush your teeth for a full 2 minutes twice a day. And that's something most people probably don't use or brush their teeth that long. And that's what I really like about this electronic, really good, expensive brush that I have, because it has a timer on it. So then, of course, you stop when the brush stops. So that can be quite useful. We talked about, the toothpaste, the kind of toothpaste you should use. You want to kind of brush at a 45-degree angle in a circular motion, and you want to do one tooth at a time. Brush your tongue. You can either do it with a toothbrush or you can do it with the tongue scraper, because that's where you can harbor a lot of bacteria as well. Another really good tip I recommend is to wait about 30 minutes after eating or drinking anything acidic before brushing your teeth, because the acid can actually soften your enamel, and brushing right away can actually damage your teeth. So wait a bit for your saliva to neutralize the acid. And so on that note, I am now going to wind down. It's a longer podcast, but very, I would say, nugget filled podcast with a lot of tips and a lot of tips that you can do effectively from home at your own convenience. So it's something that, you don't have to go out and spend too much money, maybe an initial investment if you buy a special electronic toothbrush. But other than that, this is straightforward, low-key, easy hacks on how to improve your mouth health or your oral microbiome. And then obviously, as you can understand, that will have a positive knock-on effect to generally all possible health complications, but these are the ones mentioned, or the only ones that are taken or have taken the spotlight. But essentially, the value needs to be recognized about how important your mouth is, and maybe you might see that now from this podcast. So on that note, wherever you are in the world, thank you so much for listening, and I hope this helped. And if you have any questions, or you want to learn more, or you'd like to have my links of where I recommend things, or for the mouth test, or Amazon finds, or if you can use the links as a reference and go buy something locally, or also the link to the the probiotic. I keep saying gut is my most common word used, but the probiotic toothpaste that can really help with your mouth as well. And then take it from there, and just notice how things can significantly improve when you look after your mouth as well. An important asset, and especially because it's interesting as well, because the celebs now are celebrating being natural again, with natural teeth, especially with the that TV series called Toxic Town that came out, with one of the main actresses having unique teeth, and being shamed for it in society, unfortunately, but I'm really loving her for being proud and confident and saying, like, this is me, this is who I am, because I am natural. And I love that stance, because I think a lot of people are starting to unwind from the fads of fake this, fake that, Botox this, Botox that. We're in a wellness era, so it's beautiful. So let's learn how to look after ourselves with this, availability of technological advancement that, we can have access at our fingertips. So here you go. All right, over and out, and I'll look forward to tuning into next week's podcast, and hope you stay tuned. Okay, bye.